ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Rebels and Flux. This week, I am honored to have a very important, very established, well-established person in the AV industry. Well, I'm lying. He's a young guy. He knows what he's doing. He just knows his stuff. I am joined by Jim Kelly from Recon Research. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well today. How about yourself, Chris?
I'm doing good. Did I embarrass you as a very well-established young man?
No, I appreciate it.
Awesome. So one of the reasons why I like selecting people to come on the show, you're a little bit of a wild card in the sense that you've stayed very in a certain niche, which is something you don't see these days, where, you know, when you started in your career, it could have been something that was very, well, let me just cut to the chase. You specialize in video conferencing and unified communications. Is that not correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. It's in my blood.
It not only is in your blood, but it is something that you've been following, you know, in your career for years at this point. This is pretty much, you know, in a world of where everybody's trying to, you know, be a master of all things, you've pretty much just got a good specialization on that, and along the way picked up some other skills. So
yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about Recon Research, fairly young organization in comparison to players in the industry. Give us a taste of what Recon Research is.
Okay. Yeah, great. So Recon Research was founded by Ira Weinstein, well known in the industry. We focus on research, analysis, and insight for the entire industry: unified communications, collaboration, audiovisual, video conferencing, ideation, you name it. That's the category that we're in. We work with end users, we work with channel partners, and we work with manufacturers on various projects to fit their needs. And out of that, we produce quite a bit of content. So there's content that's available on our subscription site. We have From the Labs, where I spend time getting my hands on equipment, testing it and analyzing it. We also do evaluations for manufacturers. We put together market research, data. We publish news. So we're very well connected to the industry and like to expose, you know, what we're seeing, what we're working on through our site.
So cool. So let's just, for the viewers at home, let's just clarify this. You are more the tire kicker, the hands-on research guy, mad scientist in the lab. Am I painting the right picture here?
That's a pretty good picture. Yes. Yep. I love to get my hands on new stuff, new toys, play with them, figure out what works, what doesn't work, and try to make sense of that for everybody, the whole industry.
All right. The kid in me has to ask, without going into specifics, you get sent stuff that is obviously not for everybody to see and obviously for people to play with. That's your job. What has been like the coolest code name that you've gotten? Or is AV that lame in there? Did they send you a project that they called, where we're sending you the Dragon Phoenix, to play with? Did they ever give it a cool code name? Do you just not get the marketing angle of it, but you just get this like weird product with a cool code name attached to it?
Nothing comes to mind right away. Back in the day, before I was working with Recon, sometimes I'd get glimpses of code names, but nothing really cool just jumps out. And maybe we need to change that as an industry. We need to start coming up with some cool code names that surface up to the street level and people start getting excited before they hear some great product name.
And in the distance, a lot of young kids are gently weeping that we do not have anything cool.
Yeah, no.
I fortunately, I did not have a cool code name, but I was working for a video conferencing company at one point, an integrator. And one of the manufacturers came in, locked the doors, brought in a couple security guards, came up with this like really funky, ominous black case, popped it open and showed us this new video conferencing device. And about as cool as it got was that it was camo. It was literally like sprayed in camo, like you would see like a test mock-up for, for the next generation car. Outside of that, they didn't have a cool name for it. but it was kind of embarrassing. And I'm not going to list who the company was, but they pulled this thing out. It's all covered in camo. And they're like, this is going to revolutionize. And then all of a sudden the camera fell off. We're like, it ain't revolutionized. So nothing. Fix that thing, man. So that's your responsibility now. Do you have like the cool stress test things to put equipment through, or are you pretty much has those tests now gone more software cloud conversations, or is there still hardware that you get to play the mad scientist role too?
No, absolutely. Definitely get to play the mad scientist with some with software and hardware, honestly. We've built some tools even that we use to stress test software solutions. If we're trying to stress test network latency, packet loss, those types of things. Or on the other side, when we're trying to test, say, the audio quality of a device, we want to do it in such a way that it's fair and honest and we can defend it. So we found ways to record that audio so that we can say, look, this is what we heard. Your product needs some help here, or it sounds great. Here's the proof is in the pudding. Here's what we have to prove that. So yeah, absolutely.
That's so cool, man. I geek out over things like that. And I know you're sitting here thinking the same thing, because I'm reacting to the fact that you get to play with toys that I don't. That's like every kid's fantasy there, to have the new toys and stuff like that. So your focus is more on the UC space. So are you working on, without going into details, obviously, but what are some of the things that you are working on that you can tell us about?
Okay. Yeah, great question. One thing that I just got back from Florida, I was there for almost a month. Literally, I had probably, I don't know, it's something like 40 to 45 different, what we call group add-on devices. So these could be everything from the little discs that sit on a table in a conference room to make the audio sound better, all the way up to, a sound bar that's mounted to the wall. I just spent the entire month of July testing literally 40 to 45 of these devices. And we're getting ready to put some of that information out and getting some feedback from the community. So there's some great things coming along those lines. And that's just one avenue. In a couple months, I'll be back and I'll be testing something completely different. So I love it.
That there, ladies and gentlemen, is called a tease. Right? That's what we like to call in the business a tease, as things to come. That's awesome. If it has anything to do with rocket ships, man, I will send you my GoPro. Please strap it to your shoulder and go. That'd be awesome.
I'm trying to figure out how to get some of the drone people to send us equipment so we can test the cameras or something. We got to do it.
We're going to go into that in a little bit. So. Now that we know what you're doing and top secret stuff, this whole video should be redacted. Half of it, at least, will probably be redacted when it's all said and done. Tell me about Jim Kelly. Where did you come from and what did you start at? What was your early career stuff at? Because you have, like I said, I've known that you have progressed in the UC space. Where was your first touch on the video conferencing, in the video conferencing space?
Oh boy, going back down memory lane. My first introduction to video conferencing was at Capital One. So I was with SPL at the time, and I was contracted on site in Virginia to support all the video conferencing in this one building, all the AV in one of their buildings. And video conferencing was there. And when I saw it, I was intrigued by it. And it harkened even back to my high school days, where we had these ISDN video systems that we push into the room, and we were learning, distance learning. And there was just something about it that was intriguing to me and captured me. And I just had to learn more. And I think that's probably me more than anything, is once I start learning something and get excited about it, it's just the trajectory is upward. I love it and got it.
Hold up. ISDN in schools. Were you in the AV club?
No, we did not have any. Great question. We did not have an AV club. I was not in it.
I have yet to find a person that I interview on Rebels yet that has started at some point pushing a TV or a cart or a DVD player, or maybe even knows what a VHS would be. But, who was actually in the AV in the AV club. If you were listening and you did not attend Hawkins Middle School from the Stranger Things, but you did have an AV club, please let me know in the comments below. That'd be kind of good. So yeah, awesome. So your actual start was back, you remember going, through that and being fascinated by distance learning. That was pipe dream for my generation, obviously, because we didn't have something like that. But you get out, you start working for SPL, which of note, I have to put in the footnotes here, that was pre-AVI SPL, for those that don't know. So that's pretty cool that you actually were a SPL, an ex-SPL person. So you start at Capital One, and then you go to AVI SPL, and AVI SPL is where you basically learned and really focused your craft on things that were all, video conferencing and hardware related. Is that correct?
No, that's absolutely correct. As video conferencing, we're talking about the days when we're transitioning from standard definition to high definition, and the interoperability issues that went with that, and all the infrastructure to make it work, and being able to call from one company to another through the internet, and dealing with the packet loss and the latency, and how do we do that. Was all, I was right at the cutting edge of all that, and I had to learn it. So yeah, AVI SPL was where I cut my teeth and really grew with video conferencing all along. Yeah.
So you were there in the heyday of when video conferencing codecs were literally duking it out. I mean, you had Polycom in one corner. You had Polycom had via video. You had Polycom in one corner. You had Tamberg. You had PictureTel phasing out because Polycom had taken PictureTel, and at one point PictureTel was the be-all, end-all. You had these massive codec wars. You don't see that these days. You're not witnessing that. Those in-room appliance-based systems have now changed, in your opinion, correct?
They've changed, but you know what? Honestly, our research finds that people still buy them at a pretty steady rate. We published some research recently, and they're still being bought and sold. They're changing though. You see Polycom and what they're doing with the new I think G7500, and even getting away from some of the proprietary connectors that they have, and so it's changing. There's still something to be said there for that hardware-based codec, but there's also we're in this PC era where we have PCs in conference rooms too that are running software, so it's a different type of battle now.
Do you see a point, like when you guys sit around and chat now as a company, you guys see do you look to the future and see a point where it may switch completely from hardware to strictly cloud-based? Are people that are currently in that market looking? There are people that are looking right now and saying, you know what, cloud-based is where I want to be right now because I don't want to buy hardware. Then there are the others that are still gonna wait and see, and that's where your company comes in. You guys are doing the evaluations of what's best for the companies, especially on the end user side. Where should your investments go? What is the cutoff? Is it a 10-year window still? Do you feel comfortable telling people that there's still that much time before everything is going to be completely cloud-based?
That I see what we see the conversations in the market where people are like, oh no, it's all going, the hardware's gone. And then we do this research and find that the hardware really isn't gone. Mm-hmm. And it makes us take a step back and say, well, where is it going? And then you hear security concerns popping up, and PCs having to be updated, and the downtime of that. And I don't know. I don't want to put a crystal ball out and say what I think is going to happen, because I don't think that it's lining up with what people thought even 5 years ago when they started talking about this. So I don't know. There's different reasons why people want that hardened codec sitting in a room and that raw processing power, as opposed to a PC. But then there's other reasons why people love PCs, to just throw them in there and get going. So I don't know. You're
quickly starting to get into the conversation I don't want to have with you, because we'll take about an hour and a half to just get through what a good enough video system would be versus what is a great video system. That's a mini series in Rebels and Flux world. So the cloud conversation, is getting louder, which is exactly what I'm hearing. But I've also, and I've heard the same things, and I'm not an industry analyst, but I've heard the same things. The concerns with the privacy and the security keep leading people back to the appliance-based systems that are purpose-built to go from A to B and have no way in or out. That's essentially, keeping it as, using the KISS theory. Keep it simple, stupid. Just one in, one out, and it does nothing other than what you need it to do. I've heard those same things. Wow, maybe I should get a tinfoil hat and call myself a futurist now. This is going to be awesome. This is going to be awesome. So you've gotten now, we've gotten the first, hey, I saw video conferencing. I went into it. Then you went into a company like SPL or AVI SPL, spent your time, really honed your craft. What was the attraction? And I kind of already think I know what your answer is going to be. What was your attraction stepping over to the analyst consultant, career choice?
Sure. So I started out as the channel partner, right, as AVI SPL, and understanding how to get things installed and built and make customers happy. Then the in-between step there was I went to be an end user manager for about 4 years. I was at PayPal. So now I was on the other side of the picture, managing video conferencing and video conferencing deployments and feeling the frustrations from that side and what we needed as a customer, as an end user. So for me, as I came out of that, I realized, okay, I have this. On one side of my brain, I know what I need as an end user and what I want as an end user. And then on the other side, I know what it's like to get this installed. So I just felt that it was a good time to start putting those pieces together and really helping the industry. I just love the industry so much, honestly. And I just want to help the industry move along. So if it's a manufacturer telling them, hey, got to change this in a product because the end user is not going to understand what you're doing. That's what I want to do.
100% with you on that. I think we both went to the same AV Kung Fu Master School, in that the only way to really learn the ways of the force is to see it from all different sides of the coin. Being a tech manager, being, an integrator, being a consultant, getting a different perspective really changes. I mean, I walk into spaces now with a better understanding of what I'm walking into, simply because I've been that at one point, and I think that it adds a level of it adds a level of skill that is hard to explain until you've gone through it, such as yourself, where you have been the integrator, the end user, and now the consultant. You'll see a very, very wide range. And, I went off into the manufacturer side, and now I'm on the distribution side, learning that there is 100 different ways to look at AV. And you're right, it is an awesome industry to be in, but depends on what side of the fence you're standing at. There are so many different views. It's very prismatic in how, the reflections are very different. So that's awesome. So if you're going to be, and for the people that are watching, if Jim's working on a project for you, understand that Jim understands where you're coming from, simply because he's been on that side. And that's a huge advantage to a consultant. That is a huge advantage to, as an analyst, to have that perspective. A lot of times, consultants get a bum rap. You guys are, I can refer to as you guys because I'm no longer a consultant, but you guys, get that image of, we know best, and this is what, we're going to, here people look at our stuff. But when you properly do the research and you actually empathize with the customer and get that, that real world view of where that customer's at and where they're going, I don't think that, hiring a consultant to take a look at your video conferencing or your video conferencing plan of the future, because that is part of the future. I have a silly question though, right? Do you still hear people ask you when you go in and talk, are people still talking about travel reduction with video conferencing, or has that ship sailed? Is that still a conversation piece? Do you have a slide? If you have a slide in a PowerPoint, that's going to be very telling.
It is a relevant conversation. Yes, definitely. It definitely comes up, because companies are looking at different ways to cut costs, and if video conferencing plays into that, and it reduces travel, that's still a relevant conversation for them to have. So it's one piece. It's one of many pieces, I think, that go into the video conferencing discussion today. It's not. There's a lot more depth to the conversation today. I think people understand the psychological benefits of video conferencing now better than they did early on. When we're first talking about video conferencing, you had to sell the travel benefit first. But now that everything is kind of coming down and being commoditized a little bit more, I think people can start having a little different conversation about, remote workers and how management can be done through video conferencing. I had an employee that was based in China. I only got to see him one time in 4 years. But that face-to-face was critically important to our success.
I love the tidbits of knowledge that you're dropping in here subtly into these things. One of the things that I caught in your last statement was the remote worker. How big of a conversation is that? Because there are published reports all over the internet. Remote working is dead. People are not going to do, they're not shrinking their offices. They're bringing people back in. For example, IBM brought all their people back into the office after doing a very widespread rollout for remote work. How real is remote work right now from what you're seeing?
I think it's still very much a conversation piece. Again, it depends on who you're talking to, right? So in my case, working at PayPal, even if I was in an office, my team was distributed across the world. Mm-hmm. So even though I'm not working from home, I'm still remote in the sense that I cannot see that person face to face, but only every couple of years. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's a more refined discussion of, people that are not in the same location that have to work together regularly, or when you have to manage across geological boundaries, for instance.
Last question on that remote topic, because it's a very interesting one to people that may be watching. How does, when you guys are out there doing your studies and your research on stuff like that, how important are you, how much weight are you adding to mobile into the discussion of a bigger unified communications plan? Obviously, for a long time, AV had nothing to do with just cell phones, nothing to do with video on a phone for that matter. How important is that in the overall plan, that you guys are seeing?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly how to answer that, but anecdotally, I will say I find it to be interesting how many times I dial into a call and somebody's mobile, and you can tell they're mobile because you can hear the headset, you can hear the background noise.
Yep.
More fascinating was you dial into a call and somebody's holding up their cell phone on a Zoom call, for instance, and they're talking to you, or they've got their phone positioned over.
They're taking selfies.
They're driving and video conferencing. In fact, somebody like Zoom even has a button now saying that I'm driving, so you can tell them that you're actually driving. So I think it's there. I think it's probably smaller than we think it is, but I think it's there and enough that somebody adds features like that.
It has to be part of the discussions it has to be part of the bigger discussion. And I think with 5G coming, the better, faster, that's gonna be a big, second time on video I have to say this, that's gonna be a bigger game changer than when people.
And now that I'm thinking about it even more, the ability to do some sort of one-touch joining of calls where it pops up on your phone and you just click a button. Mm-hmm. I think it's there. I think it is important. Those people that are stuck in, San Jose traffic trying to get in, or pick some other city where there's terrible traffic, not around me. But I think people are doing that enough that they need to be able to get into meetings quickly from their mobile device.
Yeah. I still have a hunch that real estate is a driving factor in remote work. Yep. And any of these places, honestly, we can all talk about how great it is, work-life balance, this, that. Honestly, I think it comes down to companies are trying to just cut out of that real estate business, especially, in the San Francisco, New York City area where, it is ridiculously expensive to own a shop. You're going to have to get off and get off the grid, or go as further into the middle of the country as possible to get better, cheaper, faster, as far as property values go. The real estate rent in those two, iconic cities for tech and innovation are just way through the roof. And I think that is also a big driver in it, though, as AV people, we all want to think it's our technology. No, I think it really comes down to a big part of it has to do with the real estate. So now that we have found out more about Recon, we find out what you do. You're a mad scientist. Some would refer to you as the wolf from Pulp Fiction, the guy that they call in to fix problems, calmly just take care of problems when they happen. We found out that you're also a hands-on guy, that you like to play with toys. I would hate to see your collection of toys growing up, because I would assume that you would probably tear things apart and they would always go back in weird ways. So
yeah, there's a reason why my kids have Legos, and that's the main toy they like to play with.
Excellent. So here we go. We're going to jump right into the bizarre questions, because that's what we like to do. Right. So let's go. You are a resident of Arizona, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So does that automatically mean that your favorite colors are pastels and turquoise?
I shirt right now. So wow.
You can say no.
No, not really, but I do like the earth tones,
That's awesome. I guess I threw you off with the pastels and turquoise. All right. I'm not going to ask your age, but I am going to ask you this ever important question from the 1980s. Did video kill the radio star?
Yes, it did.
Definitively. You had a hard time with the pastels and the turquoise, but sure as hell, video killed the radio star. That is official. That is awesome. That will keep me there. I just took free advice from Recon. I will continue doing video podcasts as opposed to audio. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
All right. If I was to go to Arizona, which I've been there once, and I've been to Phoenix, how many sun cities are there in Arizona?
Oh my goodness. It's all Sun City with like this pyramid scheme of sun cities underneath. Sun City West. Yeah, they're all over the place. Just
what does that even mean?
It's just a very large development, that they all link themselves together under the Sun City umbrella. It's a special place.
Okay. All right. And here's probably the toughest question I'm going to ask you today, sir. Get ready for this. What is a better trade show or event? Infocom or Jeep Jamborees?
Oh, you got me. Had to get me with the Jeep question.
You knew it was coming. You can't own an Instagram.
Oh, yes.
You can't own an Instagram and watch me follow it and know that you have this thing for Jeeps. So let's dive right into it. Tell me about your passion for Jeeps, because this kind of even supersedes your ability to take things apart and build them back together.
Absolutely. I work so I can play. And when we play with the Jeep. I have a great Jeep, as Chris alluded to, that I take pictures and post them on Instagram all the time of it. It's dubbed the Black Widow. It's painted with Kevlar. So it's black Kevlar paint. If you bump up against it, you'll get a scratch. It's like this sandpaper. I recently rebuilt the entire suspension underneath to get even more out of it when we're off-road and having fun. So I take my kids off-road at least 2-3 times a month. We're out in the desert somewhere. Yeah.
And this is like an all-day, maybe even an overnight trip?
Yeah. So at this point, we're just doing day trips. We're going to start advancing into the world of overlanding, as they say, where you do some camping overnight. But yeah, typically this is up at 6 a.m. back when it gets dark, or we do the overnight runs where we leave when the sun goes down, because we live in the desert, and you're out till 2-3 a.m. tearing it up somewhere in the desert.
Very foreign for me. In my part of the world, in my part of the country, in where I'm at in Jersey, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Those are the people that I bring with me. Most people that I bring with me are they're just the smile on their face the whole time. They're just blown away that we can be doing these types of things with these vehicles.
All right. Make sure that your wife is not within an earshot of this conversation. At what point will your Jeep upgrades outweigh the cost of the Jeep?
He already knows because we're getting in the right ballpark. Yeah.
That's crazy. That is. We had another gentleman on, Monty Bennett from Barco, who is a former car audio guy, and he was in car audio competitions. I asked that same question, and he was real quick. He's like, you know what? It tripled in value within X amount of days. We sold the car we got out of it, because he was getting to the point where it was only going to be only good for the car. Like you'd have to, the car got so expensive and to the point where it was so hooked up and upgraded that it would have to be what he referred to as a trailer queen. Just went to the shows, plopped it down, turned it on, put it back on the trailer, brought it home, kind of losing the daily driver feel. Will you ever have that show truck, or is it going to continue to be the family truckster or the daily driver that occasionally likes to do a wacky incline?
It's got to be the daily driver. So that to me, I'm trying to keep it within the bounds of being the daily driver. But even while being the daily driver, it can be shown off, you know. So I added lights underneath recently, so that when I pull up to get ice cream or something, I can pop the lights on and people ooh and ah over it. Yeah, absolutely.
You are now. I mean, Monty was in khakis and a gray shirt. Never think of him as a car audio guy. You, sir, would pass as unassuming rock climbing Jeep man. It's a great beard. You do have that outdoor, wilderness man type of thing. But come on, that is awesome. We want more pictures. If you don't follow Jim on Instagram, he has a specific page for his Jeep outings, and it's great. And it's typically Jim and his kids, and they're off in the middle of the desert looking for things and climbing up the mountains with their Jeeps. And I want, without getting harmed, I want more rattlesnake pictures and scorpion pictures and weird animal pictures. And if possible, can we make a request for a selfie with that white skull with the horns? I don't even know what kind of animal is that. Does that even exist anymore? Or is that like Old West?
Just usually dead bulls laying in the desert.
That's what it is?
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you what that was. I was going to say, do you own one of those things with the long horns? But apparently it's a dead bull. Wow. You learn new things every day. Jim,
I know.
So where can people find out more about Recon Research before we get more in-depth into your Jeep thing? Where can we find out more about Recon?
All right. So our website is the best place to get us. Reconres.com is the website. So that's where you can come get some information. Most of our content is under a subscription. So end users, that is free, and channel partners, and then manufacturers pay a little bit for that subscription just to help cover the bills. But really, we're trying to be open, honest, and get information out for people, and that's the vehicle that we're using.
That's great. It's a great service that you guys offer. I mean, it's just another facet of what AV does. We're not just building stuff or designing stuff. We sometimes are just guys that spend their time researching and writing reports based on that. And that absolutely is something that is credible and obviously something that we need in this industry, because how else? You're like the consumer, you're trying to be kind of consumer reports without being so consumery.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And you know what? I have one last question. How hard is it for you to go out in public and sit at a place where there's bad AV?
Oh, I hate it. Oh my goodness. My brother-in-law and I, we went to a show the other night, and one of the projectors at this show had some ghosting in it. We're looking up there, we're zooming in with our, VGA cable going to this thing, and there's ghosting and lines going down through. We're like, come on. And it was a newly upgraded projector, but they hadn't upgraded any of the infrastructure going to it. It drives me crazy. Yes.
Well, sir, you are still, you may be doing a lot of research and analytics and testing that are going on behind the scenes, but you're still an AV tweep at core with that answer. I appreciate that. That still shows that, you are at heart exactly what we all are. We're still all just a bunch of nerds who absolutely love what we do and geek out at what we do. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Jim, you are on LinkedIn. Where else can we find you, Jim Kelly, on the interwebs?
So on Twitter, I'm Geek and Awe. That's where I mainly post AV content and storm chasing, a whole nother facet of Jim Kelly.
Didn't even go there yet.
Yeah, we didn't even go there. And then on the Instagram, my Jeep, my 2015 Black Widow.
Awesome. We will check it out. This has been another fun episode, man. I thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. I know you're traveling, spending months in other parts of the world and country and stuff like that, and taking some time to sit back and give us a different perspective. Because one of the things we haven't had on Rebels and Flux yet has been the view of the consultant analyst. So I thank you for coming on the show. This has been Rebels and Flux. My name is Chris Netto. You can find me on Twitter at Chris_Netto. You can find the sponsor of this show, Starin, at starin.biz. That is the website. Or you can find them on Twitter and Instagram as well at Starin_MKT. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Rebels and Flux.